why is it that people are always trying to fit in, and why is it that these trends are in right now? And Marilyn Monroe once said, "Give a girl the right pair of shoes and she can conquer the world." But if you know anything about history, you would know that that it hasn't always been that way. That women have gone through a lot, and why would one good pair of shoes make any difference in how you can conquer the world? And I think Marilyn Monroe was onto something, because she knew that everybody needs a pair of shoes, but a good pair of shoes makes more than what you need. It makes a statement. And today I want to illustrate to you the impact that American society has had on women's fashion. And I'm going to focus particularly on the three eras: the 20s, the 50s, and the 70s. But first we're going to start with the era that started it all, which is the 20s. This era, according to 1920s fashion and music, was known as the decade of change. They also state that, well, we all know that this came right after World War I. So the economy was growing, and there was a rise of the middle class, and urbanization of America was all around. And along with change, they came cars, and with cars, women were allowed to travel more. And it was shown because women were now given this freedom that they never had before, and so they showed it in the way that they dressed. And before, as you can see here, the skirts got shorter, not that much shorter as we see today, but their ankles and their calves were showing, and they had shorter hair, which were called bobs, and I mean, their backs were showing, and they were just way more revealing than they ever were before, and this was because of freedom that they had now. These women were called flappers, and they were known for their rebellious actions that they pursued and the way that they dressed. This, however, didn't last that long. It only lasted a decade because of the Great Depression. Women had to go back to their old ways, and they had to dress a little more covered up because they had to work more. But it carried back up in the 50s. The 50s did pay homage to the 1920s, but they also introduced new styles that we consider vintage. According to peoplehistory.com, the 50s brought new availability of fabrics that weren't shown before because of the war ending, and we just had more available to us. And the 50s are known as happy, upbeat time. We look at it as like the creation of America, and women in the time wore more colorful clothes than they did in the 20s. But this also created the bottle figure that we still see today that women tried to have. So what they did was they wore fuller skirts to give them more of that bottom shape, and they wore the little belts because they wanted to have that like thin waist. But they also had, you can't see it here, but it kind of shows that bust figure too that they wanted to have. They also had this, they wore pants, which didn't happen before because it's a new freedom that they had now. So they also carried it on here, and I like this picture because it shows that women still had that housewife job title that they had, but they still did it in a fashion way. And then finally, we come to the revolutionary disco era that leads us up to modern day fashion. The 70s were the first time women actually made statements in their fashion because they were wearing way more revealing clothes than any other generation we've seen before. They were wearing pants a lot more, even though we did see it in the 50s. Pantsuits were used for work, they were used to go out, but they did go all the way down, and they were flared at the bottom. And then the colors were just very vibrant. They were yellows and reds and things like that. And they, for the first time, were wearing shorts, and they were wearing tops that were just what we consider crop tops now. And with the women's rights movements, women were definitely not going to stop doing what they were doing, as in wearing their clothes with shortness. And yeah, these women fighting for their rights set down guidelines for what we see today as modern. We see the bobs of the 1920s today as women have short hair, and we also see the shortness of the clothes. Yeah.
So Sergio, you here? What did you think?
Well, the pictures were good. You know, they gave us an image from the style that they had in the 1920s, 50s, 70s. But other than that, I feel like she was kind of like unorganized. Sometimes I felt she was talking about this spot, and she was another one. And just eliminating the ums would make the speech better. Because it's kind of like she didn't really know what to say at the moment. And sometimes like she just cut it off. Like she just like keep talking and she was like, okay, yeah. So you just wondering what happened. But other than that, it was okay.
Particularly at the end of the speech.
Yeah.
Where, you know, yeah, and the conclusion did feel like we lost a little something, like there was something missing. All right, well, I think that you have an interesting topic, and you've got several approaches that you're using to get the audience's attention. You've got a statement about its importance, you've got a rhetorical question, you got a quote from Marilyn Monroe, so you got a lot of ways that you're getting into the topic. Then you kind of start talking about the shoes, and I'm going, well, wait a second, is she really taking that quote so literally? The transition then to the main purpose statement just felt a little bit abrupt because it is a more general statement. So I don't think that there was anything wrong with the attention device or the quote. I just thought it was kind of strange the way you transitioned to the purpose statement. The setup of the content was clear. I mean, you told us what the periods were that you were going to talk about. I think you ought to have a little bit more explanation at the beginning about why you were talking about those three periods, that they are the most significant periods of the 20th century when fashions changed the most, or they had the greatest impact, or something like that. I thought that there was a shortage of citation of the material. I got one source citation that I heard about halfway through one of the points, you know, peopleshistory.com, and then other than that, it was like, and where did this piece of information come up, for instance, that the dresses changed in the 20s because of the automobile? I know that you read that someplace, but I don't know where you got that piece of information. That the 50s clothes were influenced by new materials that were available. You know, I know that there's some research there somewhere, but I'm not hearing that cited, so that needs to be a little bit more consistent. I thought that some of those explanations needed to be a little bit more complete. Also, the idea that the clothing styles changed drastically after the 20s because of the Depression, that makes a little bit of sense. You know, suddenly people had to be more careful about their spending habits. There was kind of a change in the culture, and that was reflected for the next 20 years while people were in the Depression and during World War II. It's not that people stopped dressing nicely, but it certainly was not quite the fashion. Nobody thinks of 1939 as the fashion point of the universe, and you know the 20s stand out clearly in contrast to everybody. So I think you need to maybe explain that a little bit more. You're on the right track there, right? I thought you made a good point. And then, of course, the visuals are very good, illustrating a couple of the points that you had. The dramatic changes in the dresses that the women were wearing, the colors in the 1950s, the pantsuit styles in the 70s. I thought you did a pretty good job on that. By the way, I'm wondering if any of those 70s clothes still influence people today. I mean, that was 40 years ago. Ouch. Ouch. It hurts because I lived through all of that, you know. It was 40 years ago, and I'm wondering, well, is there still an influence? You know, has it just become the norm that women wear pants? Well, you ought to say those kinds of things. I mean, that's why you're talking about that decade. No, I don't know that many people wear pantsuits, you know, maybe Hillary Clinton, you know. But outside of that context, you know, most people are not typically, you know, wearing that sort of thing, at least that I don't see. You know, maybe I'm wrong. So a little bit more about why you're talking about that decade and how it was important and influential. And you can go back to all of them and talk about something that changed that still influences us now. And I think that would help give you a better exit than you had at the end. It just kind of said, so we talked about the 30s, the 50s, and the 70s, and that's it. And then you were done. But you could be telling us a summary, you know, so women's clothing styles got liberated and different because of technology changes like the automobile, or because of economic changes like the Depression, because of scientific advancements, because of the materials that were available, and because of the political achievements and changes that took place in the 70s. So, you know, women can relish the way that they are dressing nowadays in a way that they never could before, because they have a combination of all those sorts of things that allows them to, you know, make their current fashion statement, something like that. So you can see how it all comes together at the end. As it was, I think Sergio had the right point. It really feels like it's kind of chopped off there at the end. All right, thank you.